I'm assuming Sheila will be along, but you haven't heard.
No, I have not heard.
Was she in the water collaborative meeting?
Doesn't start till 11. Okay. We will start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning and welcome to the January 13th meeting of the County Commissioners. And our first guest this morning is Sheriff Cummings. Welcome, Sheriff. I believe you have a plaque.
Yep. As you certainly know, we transitioned over to the state effective July 1st, and everything went as smoothly as could be expected as far as the transfer over to the state systems go and everything like that. But having said that, and having been involved since the short 11 years that I've been sheriff, and all the good things the county has done for us, I thought it would be appropriate if we made a little presentation on behalf of not only me, but all of the sheriffs who have worked in Barnstable under the county government system. So I had this plaque made up, and basically I'll just read it to you. It's Barnstable County Sheriff's Office, James M. Cummings, Sheriff, in grateful appreciation to the County of Barnstable for its support, professional service, and guidance spanning more than 3 centuries, beginning with Sheriff William Bassett in 1692 and ending with Sheriff James M. Cummings in 2009. So we thought
Thank you very much.
give this information.
That's great. Thank you very much.
All right.
That is very nice.
Jim, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Not that we would ever forget you anyway. Surely we won't forget you.
At least not until next year.
That's right.
I wonder if we're supposed to, I'd like to make a motion that we accept with pleasure the proclamation and the plaque.
I would second that,
Okay.
definitely.
And I just want to say over the past several years, the cooperation between the county finance department and the employees that work in the administration here in the county has just been fantastic. You got a great group of people that were always good to us. With 300 plus employees, there's always questions about payroll and insurance and benefits, and the staff here at the county, Robin in particular, who is our payroll person, just outstanding.
That's really great to hear, Sheriff. And, it really, in a certain sense, we don't really think of you as having been gone. Probably the paperwork is more representative, I think, of the fact that there is not that connection anymore, or that direct connection. But you are certainly part of the county, and we will always see the Sheriff's Department as being part of the county.
Absolutely, and there is some confusion, I think, on the part of the public relative to that. They seem to think that I'm a state agency now or something like that. Nothing has changed. As a matter of fact, the county district attorneys went over to the state over a decade ago, and they're still certainly very much involved in the county system, and I hope in the future that we can come up with some partnerships. I know we'll always be looking for help, and we'll always be looking for money together, and if there's something that comes together that we could both do, I certainly would.
Well, I think, too, as long as you always serve the citizens of Barnstable County, there will always be that important connection and the need to share and collaborate on really important things that will advance the work that you do and certainly improve the life of all of us who live here on the campus.
Sure, and I mean, the regionalization aspect was certainly are already well underway in that with the communications center and our involvement with the police chiefs, and the Cape Cod Law Enforcement Council is very active, where all the police chiefs, myself, meet at least once a month and go over different issues across the county and form bonds with joint operations that we do together. So I mean, there's a lot going on, and I think it's all good. If we could only just get some money.
That's right. Yes.
I'd just like to, to say that it was my pleasure to support some of the things that we, especially in the move to the state, and if that is needed in the future, you have a general, expression of support, but in particular, if there's anything at all we can do to move your agenda forward, please feel free to come to us, because you've certainly helped us in the past. We want to make sure that that we'll, I would be more than willing to go and help as much as I could in the future.
Great.
Well, we still have a couple of unresolved issues. One being the CMED.
Yeah.
And we're still working together on that
Yep.
to try to affect that change in a positive way and with the proper funding.
And I think I CC'd you folks in a letter I sent to the
Yes.
fire chiefs.
And I thought that was wonderful that you did step up and say that you were willing to continue to support it. Both of us have come up with with what we had available. The next question comes up as to whether or not we can keep the thing going. I think your suggestion about sharing the cost from the user is one that I think we've talked about, and I think that's in the end that's probably where the solution is.
Yeah, and hopefully in the meantime, the legislature will come up with
Right.
a fixed revenue stream, and we won't have to worry about it at all.
Well, I saw the Senate President the other day and mentioned it again, so every time she sees me, she knows I'm going to ask about it. So.
And I know Senator
And
O'Leary
you
is
know,
working on it.
yes, and he's working on it too. Yeah,
Very good.
very good.
All right,
Thanks,
thank
Joe.
you.
Thank you, very nice to see you, good luck.
This,
We
request.
have some, yes, go
Okay,
ahead.
but before we do this, I think all three of us should
Should be,
sitting-
right. These are some appointments and reappointments
And
to the Cape
resignation.
Cod Economic Development Council.
Right.
I don't have them, so.
Okay,
Oh.
this was just put on the desk.
So, yeah, somebody just put them here, I'm not sure who.
In the past, we have asked people that we didn't know to come in and talk to us.
Yes, and that's something that we may want to do. And if you do, you probably know Paul Roma. He's a recommendation for appointment. He was on the old EDC.
Well, I remember the old EDC.
I'm talking, yeah, the one before.
That was the one before the divorce.
Right, exactly. And well, you can read it over, and then when Sheila gets here, we can take this up later
Yeah.
and decide if we want to make these appointments based on the recommendation, or if we want to ask the individuals to come in and meet with us.
Okay. I did, but I just thought it was a courtesy of all three. We should be here for that.
Yes, definitely.
Okay, could we move on the, perhaps we could move on the commissioner's
On the
action.
summary of items,
Yeah,
okay, you want to take a minute to see if there's anything
Any questions
you want to
that you have?
ask about?
I didn't, when I looked over it this morning, I hadn't seen anything, and, the dredge agreement with the town of Dennis, was that one of the ones that was included in the notice on the DCPC?
It's not affected by the DCP, affected by the DCPC.
Okay, I'm good on all of
I
them.
am too.
I'll move
Okay.
them
Moves items 1 through 18,
into 18.
and I'll second those. All in favor?
Excuse me, I didn't.
Oh, we should.
Yeah, additional, they came in later, that's why
Oh,
they're
okay.
listed like that, because you probably, when you received the first email,
Mhm.
summary items, they only had 1 through 18, that's why she's noted that these came in after she sent the original to you.
Okay, then we want to,
It'd be 1 through 22.
21.
1 through 21, right.
right, and we'll hold off 22 till Sheila's here and we can talk about the appointments.
I do have a question on the retreat for CLC. Is that coming out of the energy management funds, or is that coming out of the county?
No, not county funds.
Okay. All right, then I'm good on 1 through 21. I'll move those.
Okay, I'll second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? None? Motion carries.
Okay. Here's your summary of items. And just a minor adjustment to your schedule. We have our 9:30 a.m. County Commissioners budget discussion, and then we don't have anybody coming until 11, so we'll be able to recess.
The Economic Development Council isn't coming in?
No.
No. So we'll be
They
able
don't
to
have a budget this year.
Right.
They had an operating fund budget when Dan Dre was the employee of the...
And the funds were paying for his salary. Now Dan is an employee on
He's
under
now
the
an employee
Cape
of the
Cod Commission, so there's no budget.
Oh. What about the, there's still a little bit left out of the license plate fund. How does that
Yeah, well,
allocate?
that's, we had a meeting yesterday. Mark and I met with Bob Troy
I see.
and the EDC. So we can talk about that later.
All right, well, since we still have time, now that Sheila's here, we could talk
Yeah,
about
let's talk about the
appointments.
appointments. Good morning.
I am so sorry I'm late. I had to run over to the school for my... Okay. I'm okay now.
Well, the
Good morning.
sheriff
Good
was
morning.
here, and he presented
Oh, I'm
us
so
with a
sorry I
plaque.
missed it. That was fast.
Yeah, your warrant is.
I put it on the
process.
table over there.
Yeah, I know. Did he take care of that for me?
It's very nice.
My arrest record.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Oh, lovely.
I think the 7 years have gone by, so
Well, they're
everything
gonna
is
have to
being
do something
sealed.
with that.
Yes.
Right, I think they're gonna have to,
Are we on?
Where's the facilities guy?
Oh, yeah.
You're gonna have to put a thing on there.
All right, we've already voted the summary of actions.
Okay,
And
good.
now
All right,
we
'cause,
have, you have right there, no, here on the table. This is the memo from Felicia Penn, the vice chair of the
Yes.
EDC.
Yes.
And the EDC has interviewed individuals for appointment to the EDC.
Mhm.
They're also recommending reappointment.
Yes.
And I think we can deal with the reappointments. The terms that are expiring
Mhm.
are Felicia Penn and Rick Presbury. And those are 3-year terms, and they begin January 1 of 9 to December 31st,
So
2012, or January 2013. Is that how it goes, Maggie?
Yes,
From January 1st of the year to January 1st of the
I'm a little confused. I will have to double check
Yeah, I'm not sure
as to
when
why
they
you didn't. They expired 12/31, so these should have been things but we didn't vote on these last week, so.
Oh, okay. I see. All
Okay,
right.
but we did vote to reappoint.
Pat's, that should be,
Yeah.
that
That's
should
already
should
done.
strike
Yes, so
that
that
from there.
doesn't come in here. We've already voted that.
Okay. So if
So we're
I-
voting Felicia Penn and Rick Presbury. And then, actually, we don't vote John Harris from the Cape Cod Commission. Isn't he there?
Actually,
He's
we're
there
appointing
as a-
everybody.
So we only are voting to reappoint Felicia Penn and Rick Presbury.
Yes.
I'm confused on that because they recommend the.
They
Cape Cod
recommend
Commission-
their liaison to you. You
Oh,
still
and then
appoint
we-
John
us, so we
and then
Harris.
do
we-
vote
And
on
then we
John.
appoint, yeah.
Okay.
So
Okay.
somebody who moved the first one? Bill, did you?
I'll move the first one.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. The motion carries.
Okay, and then I'll move the second one for the reappointment of John Harris as the Cape Cod Commission liaison,
Okay.
since we've already taken care of your reappointment.
I will second that.
Okay. All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. Motion carries.
Okay.
And I'll move to accept the resignation with regret from
Yes.
Miss Dorothy Savarese. And I would suggest that we send a letter of
Thanks.
thanks to, because of her service. So I wonder if we could ask Maggie to do that for us, so we could, all 3 of us sign it.
I'll have it for you next week.
Thank you.
Okay, I will second that.
Yeah, that was it. Okay. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Motion carries. That's unfortunate. She
It
was
is.
just a real asset to
Oh,
the
yeah.
EDC.
She was.
But it's obvious that her
Schedule is
is very full.
great.
Okay, so now item number 4, as I said, the EDC has interviewed individuals for appointment. And the first is Paul Rummel to serve a 3-year term that will expire actually January of 2013. And then Brian Mannel, who lives in Centerville, to fill the unexpired term of Dorothy Savarese, whose resignation we have just accepted.
Right. Here's my picture.
Well,
I have a question for you, if you
Yes.
don't mind. Paul Rummel's 3-year term starts January, so he served 2010, 2011, and 2012.
Right.
So I think rather than having it expire 12/31, you should have it the first January in
That's
2013.
That's
so
what I
that-
said,
okay.
January 1, 2013.
there is some, in past time, we've asked people who were not known to us to come in, so we could have an opportunity to speak to them. Rummel, while known in the community,
Mhm.
was never involved with the EDC over the last 10 years, as far as I know.
Not in the current EDC, no.
Right.
Yeah,
But he was I remember at one time he was the vice chair of the old EDC. He was on the old EDC when I was on the old EDC.
okay.
The
Do we
old
have
EDC.
somebody from, anybody else from Sandwich on the EDC?
No. There's Luce Thorolo.
He's from Harwich.
He's from Mashpee. Well, I mean, his company is in Mashpee.
Okay, but he lives in Harwich, I think.
Does he?
Mhm.
No, I don't believe there's anybody from
Okay. All right, well,
Sandwich,
I'm
which would
comfortable-
be very good
Yeah,
to have a
That's-
representative from Sandwich.
exactly, yeah.
Because I don't think there's anyone now who represents the Upper Cape at all.
John Harris
Yes,
has the
he's from
Cape-
Sandwich.
he's
Yeah,
from
but
Sandwich,
he's-
but he doesn't have a vote.
But he's not a voter,
Because
right?
he's the liaison.
Right.
I'm comfortable with, Paul Rummel as a long, let's say, as a long term resident, and the fact that he's active in a company locally. But I noticed when I looked at the resume of Brian Mano,
Mhm.
he's only lived in town since, lived on the Cape since July of 2009. He just transplanted from Ohio.
If I
Oh, he
may,
grew up here.
He grew up here, and
Yeah.
he has come back.
Yeah. He grew up here, and then he went to school and lived in Ohio, and is now back.
He was,
So he has very strong roots on Cape Cod.
Okay, well, I'm not comfortable with someone that, has not been in
You
the
don't
community. And so well, in this particular instance, I would be more comfortable if you'd come in and we'd get a chance to maybe talk to him. Did he come to the EDC? Was he at the EDC meeting?
Not at the one, well, the interviews were done outside of the meeting. The nominating committee actually did the interviews, and they were held prior to the meeting. So I wasn't at Brian Mannel's interview, but I happened to arrive early enough to participate in not to participate, but to be present for part of the interview with Paul Rummel.
Mhm.
But I've known Paul Rummel
Okay.
anyway.
So so as I read this, he's been out of town for about 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and I guess, how many other people have applied for membership? Or is this a recruiting thing?
I don't know. I think it is a recruiting thing, but from the looks of his resume, I mean, this gentleman has a relationship with Cape Cod going back to his childhood. He's certainly qualified as far as his professional training and his experience. He's an attorney.
Well, he certainly has great qualifications since he was involved with the Bush Cheney campaign
Yes,
back in
right. Well,
2000.
I
would
won't
say
hold
that.
that against him.
But
But
I-
other than that, he looks like a fine candidate. And if they, I think their vetting process is pretty comprehensive.
It is.
And they felt very comfortable with this gentleman being on the board, and it might be a very good. We need some. He's a younger gentleman. I think it's a good mix, a good fit to bring in, and it will be a new voice and a new perspective. So I think those things are a good thing.
He took courses at my alma mater, Ohio State.
So he's a Buckeye.
That's right.
Oh, okay.
Have to-
I will move to approve these two appointments.
Again, I have, I just have some, we have had a past practice, that we would talk to people that that were not known to us directly. So that's my reservation. I don't have any problem, going ahead with Paul Rummel, but I would like to, at least meet this guy before.
Billy,
before
are
I
you
appoint him.
suggesting that you want to meet him after you vote, like you've done with the HRC last week, or are you suggesting holding up the vote until you meet him? I'm not sure I understand what you're suggesting.
I think we could vote for him and then invite him in since we don't know him and ask him to come in and meet with us. I can imagine with their vetting process and their strong interview process and his connections to the Cape and all of his experience in economic development that we wouldn't want to appoint him.
Well,
Would that be all right with you?
I think that would be fine in recognizing the fact that since he's on my side of the aisle, that I don't want it to appear that I'm sort of doing this without having some due diligence.
Oh, I
Okay.
Get that? Okay.
All right.
Okay.
All right.
Would you like to second?
I'll second it now.
All right.
Okay. Any further discussion?
I do. If I mind, would you mind if I cleaned up the dates and had the expirations be the first Wednesday for all of them,
Yes.
not just the one we just
Right,
specifically?
for all
okay,
of them,
Thank you.
that's correct.
And I will have the request forwarded to Dan that Brian Mann will come in after budget review sometime in March and
Mhm.
meet with you.
That would be fine.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. Okay, good. Well, we're probably close enough to move on to our agenda, which is the County Commissioner's Office. I know Mark's not here, so,
I ran out, I was running against the clock and I ran out without my packets, so I'm going to look on to you guys.
okay.
Oh, Maggie,
Mm-hmm.
when we get to Children's Cove, I noticed that you just had the information on the budget part, just had the range in other words, had the position, but did not say what step they were on.
Yes, Mark had an oversight, so what would you like
Okay.
me to do?
I'd like to have the steps on there so I
Okay.
know where they are. on
Sure.
there.
I thought the collaborative was coming in today.
There, the wastewater collaborative is coming in at 11 a.m.
11 a.m.
Oh,
There, there.
Water protection
The
program,
acronym.
11? Yep.
Yeah.
here it is.
So your first are your, actually, Bill, I have it on mine, so I don't know what you have, so I'll make a copy for you.
Let me see what you have before you. That doesn't have the steps on it, it just has
Yes,
the
it does.
range.
It does.
It has the range, it doesn't have the steps.
Mine has the steps on it,
Okay.
darling. I will make a photocopy for you.
Which budget were you asking for? This house?
On the Cove.
Oh, on the
It just
Cove.
had the range, it didn't have the steps.
Okay.
Did I send you a note on the county commissioner's office? I had some concern about where we would get the money for a consultant. Did I send you a note on that?
Well, we'd have to find it.
I think that was the amount of money that was being asked for the kind of work that was being done was probably very
What, for a consultant, for,
a consultant for for evaluating what we do. If you take a look at the man hours involved, if I was bidding off on that as a management consultant, you need about twice the amount of time and at $50 an hour, which would be sort of a minimal amount.
yeah, I don't know what you're looking
Oh,
at.
I'm sorry. This is we had talked about goals for the county commissioner's
Right.
office. Okay.
Mhm.
Where do you want to start?
Well, we want to start with goals.
Right.
Yeah, because
You have to set your goals. You don't
that's
have
right,
to.
Right.
that's right.
Well, I think that what Bill is referring to is our discussion about having an operational audit.
Assessment.
Right, and I think that that is a priority for us this year, to look at where we are as a county and what is our, how are we projecting where we're going in the next 10 years. And I think we have to look at the way we're structured and our functions, and if we are meeting the needs that are coming before us, which are much more complex and larger than what has been in the past, and that's really energy and the wastewater issues and supporting the economic development. I really look at that is the umbrella that the county can help towns with. As I said last week, more and more, I think the towns are beginning to recognize that there are issues that they do not have the capacity to address. For instance, Orleans came before the commission, Cape Cod Commission last week, asking for their assistance and to approve a DRI with the Stop and Shop, and they basically said it's beyond our capacity, our zoning capacity to be able to do diligence to this topic. And they're turning to the Cape Cod Commission, which is a very unusual thing for Orleans, but more and more they're seeing where the county can fill these gaps. And I think we have to be in the position to address them and to respond. So they're big issues. I think we have to take a look at all of our functions and make sure we're set up to address the big issues and and continue with the services that are important to the towns, and take a look at what those services
I'd
are.
like to ask a question about the way Orleans came forward. And when I sat on the Cape Cod Commission, there was an issue with regard to subdivisions of the town requesting DRI support, and it didn't have the support of the selectmen. And one of the things that I had asked for when I was over there, that there be evidence when somebody came forward that the selectmen were aware of it. I didn't ask that the selectmen approve it, but I did ask that the selectmen be aware of it, so that when the issue came before the Cape Cod Commission, it wasn't a case of, let's say, subordinate agencies or departments within the town putting things forward for county use without the elected, the people who are responsible for elected service do that.
Well, just to answer, there was members of the Board of Selectmen plus the chair, and I believe that there was a letter from the town manager and the zoning board.
Okay, well, that's terrific, because that's one of the things that...
Right, and that's what I'm saying, it is a change of tide for all of them to recognize that this is a need that they have and cannot really fulfill, within their budget means and their capacity. More and more, this is going to be happening either through the Cape Cod Commission or the county itself. So I think we need to take an assessment of ourselves.
The Cape Cod Commission has always had that ability to do that, and indeed, has offered it, because over time, the DCPCs and the DRIs that have come forward that have originated with the towns have always been, within the ability of the Cape Cod Commission to act, and indeed, they have, either accepting or rejecting, the nominations. I'm more concerned is, before we go to a consultant, is to what have we done with regard to the strategic plan objectives? We had meetings on it, we had talked about it, and when we go to a consultant, if I were the consultant coming to the county, I would ask from a strategic, point of view, not to have the consultant tell me what I should do, but rather, how can I accomplish those things that we think we have as goals? So, in the absence of having an agreed upon strategic plan objectives, what would we tell a consultant?
Well, what you want the consultant to do, the way I see it, is you really want to talk about an organizational assessment.
Right.
How is the county, what services is the county providing? That's pretty clear.
How do we operate? How do things get done around here?
Well, so what are we actually doing, and how is the county organized? It's not to say where do we go from here, how does it meet the objectives. It's a look at where is it now, and that gives you clues as to, based on the strategic plan we have. I mean, we have a strategic plan in place, whether we like it or not. We have, and we're going to start doing another one pretty soon, and I hope we get it done well.
It will
we
be a
won't do it
reflection
again
of this,
until-
right?
Yeah, and that could be, the next strategic plan could be a reflection on that assessment. Here is what we are doing now. These are the services we provide. This is the income we receive. These are the expenses that we incur. And at the same time we're doing that, we're hoping to have that financial assessment as well from DOR or DOLS, because we are on the list. We
Right.
sent the letter in, and that's coming down. And it's very appropriate to have them both done in the same year, because not only that, it tells us how our money comes in, how it gets placed within the budget, and how it's being accounted for. Not that there are issues related to that, but it just gives us a picture of how the operations are going, and whether or not they have suggestions on how we can either improve on them or do them a little differently.
Right, it's our
So
efficiency. How efficient are we within the money we have, and how are we targeting that money, and how are we allocating it so that we can fulfill our mission? I think that we have operations here. I think we need to see someone come in and say, how are things done? How do things operate around here, and how can this be done more efficiently? And if there is room, which I do believe that there is.
But the recommendations don't come from the people who are doing the assessment. The recommendations will come based on the information that we receive, that we look at. They don't tell us what to do. We decide what to do. But they tell us how we're operating now. They might make some suggestions to us,
exactly.
but They're not going to tell us what to do, and it involves the staff, and that's the important thing. That they this isn't just somebody comes in and looks at things. You want them to come in and talk to the people. You want them to talk to the department heads
Right.
and the staff. I mean, that's the whole idea, so that everybody has input. The financial assessment that DOLS does, that works the same way. They not only talk to department heads, they talk to the people who actually are doing the work. They talk to everybody,
Right.
and it's.
From
I
that
found
I
them.
think it's-
I found both of those in my time in doing those to be extremely valuable.
I had agreed to the financial, assessment as being a very useful thing.
Yeah.
And indeed, I think that in terms of priority, that should come first before we have an organizational assessment, because I think knowing what our financial condition is sort of speaks to whether or not our organization, the operation of our organization, will be able to fulfill what the intent is. The other piece of this is that we pay for an audit, and part of the audit develops a management letter, and the management letter does assess the efficiency of some of our operations, as well as whether or not we're meeting the criteria that's involved. There is a difference in my opinion, between public sector operational guidelines and private sector, in that we do have some restraint, so that the selection of a consultant to look at our operation, we have to find someone that, if we decide to go ahead with that, we have to find someone that's well versed in public sector operations and not go for what I would call a business expert.
Oh no, you'd have to get someone who has experience in the public sector.
And what do you think somebody like that would cost? And how many hours would it take?
I would say probably somewhere between 25 and 35,000. What do you think,
Definitely.
Maggie?
Approximately, it would be an RFP.
And
My
it'd
guess
be
is
an
it would be
RFP.
over 25.
It'd be a bidding process. You'd
Yes.
have to go out through procurement, and you'd have to have a scope of services defining what it is you want. So you have to be very specific
Right.
in the scope of services as to what you want them to do. And then when they come back and bid on it, if you find out that it's outside your range, you don't tell them what you expect to pay. But if it's outside the range, then you negotiate with the individual. And if they come in higher than what you really want to spend, then you can say, well, we want to cut this out or cut that out. And if it comes in less, and you find out maybe you can do more for that kind of money.
Yeah.
So it's a negotiation with the whoever the low bidder is.
I'm just wondering, what is your hesitation about doing an operational audit? I mean, to look at the efficiencies and where we are as a county. I don't think it's been done in a long time. And what is your
That's-
hesitation in doing that?
Well, before you answer, I think we need to define the term, what it is.
Well,
It's this isn't really an audit. It's really an
Two different
assessment. They're two
Right.
different. Yeah, they're two
Okay.
different things.
Or,
So if we call it an organizational assessment, or we call it a,
I think
what do
that's
you
not
have?
a
Is
bad
that-
term.
what I thought I heard you say, and I try to capture it down, because remember you have to put these into goals, into
Right.
tasks. There are two separate things. I agree. Conduct an I'll type it up. You guys can wordsmith however you want.
Yeah, right.
Conduct an organizational assessment of the county functions, and then you move into tasks, which you don't have to define. First is to prepare the RFP and the specifications of the RFP, which is what you're kind of getting into now that you don't need to.
Right.
You have to look at what exactly this RFP will define exactly what you want them to look at, and then you'll have to hire a consultant and oversee that process, and then review and implement. And then your measures are review and implementation of action items as a result. So, but the actual design and the composition of the RFP is a task. Doesn't need to have to be done or defined right now. But at some point, Pat, as the chair, will work with Mark or I, and then on a draft, and then you'll bring it back to the board to say this is what
We're looking for.
we're looking for, and you'll have the opportunity to change it, revise it, edit it. But the task is you actually have to come up with that. Your goal is an organizational assessment to evaluate county functions, and then the details of that. The task would be whether or not the report then identifies all the functions of the departments, identifies areas of overlap, potential. Those things are the details that don't need to be resolved at the goal stage,
Right.
but will have to be resolved resolved, in the task stage of writing the RFP. So you'll have to be really clear as to what you want in order to keep the budget manageable.
Right.
I think
Right.
that,
Exactly.
that's
Okay, at
it.
this point, I'd like to respond to Sheila.
Sure.
Okay, we had agreed, I thought, about a year ago, that we would look at each department separately. And in looking at each department separately, we would get an assessment. That suggests that each department has a different operational responsibility as well as as a different reason for what they do. An assessment of an organization that we have a planning and regulatory department. We have let's say,
We know. Okay, so go ahead. I mean, excuse me. I don't mean to interrupt you, but I mean, we have all of these different departments, and
What he's trying to do is clarify his understanding.
yes.
So if you want to,
If I could finish.
you can
Go
finish.
right ahead.
All right. If we don't ourselves have a sense of what each one of these departments do, then I think that it isn't helpful to take a look at the whole organization. Whenever you go out for a consultant, the consultant will ask, because I used to ask, what exactly do you want to end up with? At the end of all of this, what do you want to see? Do you want to see let's say a centralized organization? Do you want to see a decentralized organization?
No, I don't think, excuse me, in this case, we're not defining the outcome. The information we're going to get will help us determine what the outcome should be. Because I don't think any one of us is qualified to say this is how it should be, because we don't know. But what we want the consultant to do when we define the scope of services and the actual specifics of this project is that we have to be clear the information we need so that when the information comes back, it helps us to determine what we want to do. And we don't need to know because the information is going to come back in the report. And we're going to be part of the assessment. It isn't like somebody's going to come in and be a ghost and do all this, and then we got a written report as a result. We're part of the process.
You're not suggesting, though, that as county commissioners, we don't know what's going on.
No, I don't mean we don't know what's going on, but I don't think any one of us is capable of making an assessment of an organization of this size.
I thought you said policy.
Yeah, you set policy, but you need information to set policy. And
That's what we do in the budget.
May I?
wait a minute, just hold on a second. You do need the information to set the policy, but how can I? Well, let's have the discussion go forward, and then I'll be able to come back and respond because. I have participated in organizational assessments before, and sometimes in a municipality, and sometimes they come back and they will make suggestions like that the functions of two departments are so close together that it would make more sense if those departments were combined, and then there was one department head, and then the function there. Let me give you an example. The treasurer and the collector. Cash flow is extremely important in a municipality, in a county, whatever. The cash flow, somebody has to be in charge of that. The collector's office receives the cash. The treasurer's office determines how that cash is going to be invested, how in terms of that. And the treasurer has other functions that relate to banking but they also have functions related to liens and property and all of those things. But because they both have a direct relationship to cash flow, it makes sometimes more sense to have one person be responsible for those functions, both treasury and collection functions. Even though they're fairly separate functions, they come together when it comes to the cash. And sometimes you need to have a cash manager, as well as you have somebody in charge of the collections as they come in. So you may want to combine that kind of a department and service because of the strategic issue of cash flow. That's just an example. So, I couldn't go into a treasury department, a treasurer's department, and figure out what's the best way to do it, what the functions are. It's not my job as a county commissioner to do that. Like here, although it isn't a collection as such, it's more of a revenue stream rather than a collection. So anyway, that's why I think what the consultant does is gather the information for you, so that you're not out there. You can't do your job here and go out and gather the information. This is what consultants do. They know how to get the information you're looking for when they see what your scope of services are. They say, oh, I know exactly what you need, and have you thought of this or that? When they come back and you go over the scope of services before they even start. So then you're very clear about what it is you need. It's just that you're not doing it yourself. Somebody else is doing it.
To me, it's not saying that we don't know what the county does. It's what we are being faced with. How can we address the issues of the future? And how can we set policy if we don't know our own efficiencies and where our capacity lies? And I think that we have to take an assessment of our capacity, of what we presently do. How can we do that better? And how can we do that better for less, since we're under the constraints of the economy that we're in? And I think that when was the last time an operational audit ever happened here? I mean, I think every organization worth its salt, whether it's public or private, needs to have a look at themselves. Everyone needs to do this, and I think that this is a very crucial time in where we're going for the century that we're in. I mean, we have huge needs that these towns are not going to be able to do, and we have to take a look at what is it that we want to help the towns with, and how can we best do that, and how can our departments, although they may be individual departments, they are under a county umbrella. How do they all interrelate, and how do they all belong to this organization, as opposed to being these satellites out there that people sometimes don't even relate, that the collaborative or the cooperative is part of the county or the health department. These things need to have a cohesive bringing together to the same mission of public policy and public service. And I think this is a key time to do it.
There is a question in my mind that when we did the assessment of when we set the was it the level of grade assessment, Maggie?
Mm-hmm.
Of what?
When we did the grade
The
assessment,
salary.
assessment, was there not some effort to determine what the functional responsibility was of those people who were getting a grade assessment?
What the salary classification study did is prepared job descriptions and rated the salary internally within one to another, so that based on the essential functions of the position, and then rated it within the county comparatively. But it didn't look at any type of organizational assessment. It was purely, what do you do, and here's your job description, and what is the value, the dollar value of that within the organization.
Okay, well, and I'll state my final reservation on this, is that I believe that if someone comes into a treasury department and takes a look at municipal accounting, collection, and treasury responsibility, that you can find areas within the financial realm where you could make recommendations. I believe that if somebody came into the Cape Cod Commission, and indeed we did have a group of the community that looked at the Cape Cod Commission and came up with recommendations, and we looked at the wastewater collaborative and came up with recommendations. And of course, the issue there was how many of those recommendations are we really able to implement because of the political issues that are involved. It is always good to take a look at operations. I'm very concerned that in looking at all of the organization without examining the parts, that we will end up with something that we're not able to implement. Whereas if we looked at department by department, we would come up with something that could be implemented, let's say, more easily, and that we'd actually see an outcome from. When I was doing the work for the Caribbean Development Bank, one of the things that came out of that was that I was the gringo that came down, and I talked to the people that were in there, and I came up with with an operational audit, and basically they accepted it, and we went forward with it. However, the thing that came clear to me was that if the if that bank, and this has happened in other organizations, had just asked the people that were already there how they should operate, that information is is already available, and indeed whether you decide to go ahead with having an outside consultant come forth, I think it's very important that the members of the organization be directly involved.
I think that is what the purpose of it would be, that this consultant would talk to each department. What are their functions? How are they meeting those functions? Is it done efficiently? And come back with recommendations as to each department and the overall. I don't understand how it would be different, how each
Well,
would be
because
separate.
managers sometimes are never asked about the
Well, that would
functional
be a
operation.
mandatory part of the RFP.
And indeed, this would be one of the things in terms of organizational behavior. What does our administrator tell us about the operation of it? Because he's not here right now. But what does he tell us about that? Because we've had two conversations about that, both of which have not involved Mark, who we pay to run the county. So the question in my mind is, should we go forward with this before we talk to Mark about it, since we pay him to run things?
Well, I had a brief conversation with Mark about it, but you're right. I think he should be he has to be part of this scope of services as well. I mean, he is the county administrator, and so he needs to be part of it.
I mean, I
And
think everybody
he would
needs to be part of
all
it.
we're talking about now is this concept of doing it, and then moving forward with it, because we also have to find money to fund it, number one. And if we agree that this is a good time to do it, which is always good, I think we've talked about this before. The best time to do planning is in the worst of economic times,
Absolutely.
because we're not spending our time looking about how to spend the money, so because we don't have it to spend. So this is the time when we should be looking at what we've got and seeing if because the activities of the county have tentacles that are many feet long. They're out in the community everywhere. And part of this organizational assessment will tell us how far those tentacles go, how valuable they are, and give us a chance to really see what we're doing, and are we doing enough? Can we do it differently? Can we make it better? But it will help us to see the far-reaching effect that county government has on Cape Cod as well. I think it'll give us a huge amount of information,
Absolutely.
as long as we design it to get the information we're looking for. So we have a huge task in just designing the RFP,
Mhm.
right?
Okay.
I think. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. so,
Okay, so
well, anyway, so
All right,
I
so
think.
you want to go ahead with this?
So I do.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think that would be a goal, and we can call it organizational assessment.
Yeah.
And the other goal, and then we have to, obviously, the tasks are, for us right now, are pretty simple. That is define the scope of services,
Issue the
develop and
RFP.
issue an RFP with a defined scope of
Do you have
services.
a timeline you have in mind?
We
I
don't,
think the sooner the better.
would be not until after July 1, obviously, because you'd have to appropriate funds, so sometime
Unless
in-
we happen to have funds this year, which we probably don't.
No,
I
not
don't
of
know.
that magnitude
Not
that
of
I'm
that
aware
magnitude.
of.
Well, we can.
And again, I put the caveat
that's a
out,
conversation
I think
with
you're
Mark.
if you think it's going to be around 25 to 30,000,
Mhm.
that you're underfunding the kind of thing that you're trying to do.
Right.
We have a $25 million operation, that is multifaceted with regard to the overall responsibility. That to get an assessment that ties it all together. The idea of consolidation and reorganization, that as part of consolidation, is a useful one, because indeed some of the organizations, some of the departments we have were actually split for what I would call non-operational efficiency reasons, and perhaps they should be examined and brought back together again. So all of those are good things.
And if I may, I think even if it went up more money than what we're stating, that money will be well spent, because it will point out maybe, hopefully the goal will be where our inefficiencies lie, and that money will be, it will come back to us in that we are more efficient and we are able to do more for less. And in the long range, that money will be recouped tenfold. The other thing I would like to request is that I do know that the auditors who are doing the financial audit right now they do that under the request of the Assembly of Delegates. And in the past, they've addressed the Assembly of Delegates and they've given a letter to the commissioners. I would request that they come before us and have a discussion with us as well as the Assembly as to what they have found and what their recommendations are, so that we can have them here and have those
Well, I think we should,
conversations.
we're off on a different
I know,
topic.
I'm just saying, but while we are sort of
asking the
around
auditors
audits,
to come in and discuss the
I
management
would like
letter
to
is
be able
very
to-
appropriate to
And-
do that.
And I think, in years past, it hasn't been on a regular basis, but they have been available to do that. And I think we had discussed this at a previous meeting, and I
Yes.
think Mark had said that we just have to ask.
I just want to,
that's right.
well, I want it on the record that we're asking.
You got that, Mary?
All right, so those are the tests. Then the financial assessment, that was done with a letter. We don't have to define any tasks with
I would
that.
just say a task should be a follow-up, because I don't know where they
Follow
are.
up, yeah, because we don't know, but the task is to make sure that we, that the, whoever, his team, that the team connects with the various people in the county so that they can get the information they need.
Okay.
The other goal that I would like to see us have is on information technology.
Absolutely.
Is our whole infrastructure, our IT. You know, we have that report from Carl.
You have the presentation, the outline. You will have the final document this shortly. But you have the presentation, which is not a report. It's his.
Right.
It's basically the PowerPoint presentation,
Right.
and then you'll have the reviewed it. I met. We gave them comments, and you will have that final, which then at that time will be a public document.
Did you
Okay.
get my comments, right?
Yes.
May I, are we going to have Peter Carlson in here to talk with? about
Once
that?
you have a final report, sure, I can
Okay,
I can
would
arrange
like-
that.
I think that would
It
be a
is-
good thing. so
Can
that-
I ask, is the report going to make recommendations in
Yes.
terms of phase-ins, of how this phase-in in terms of building, or in adding or improving, or
It does have recommendations. It's not
on the
necess-
infrastructure?
right, not necessarily phased in or timing. I think those
Okay.
would be good questions to ask. But, my suggestion is you don't have the report and him at the same day, because
Right, exactly, we have to
and I
read
have
it.
because we were, as you know, we were down. The server was down
Right.
again, so I did get something, and I have not looked at it because it just came in last night. So I don't know. Once I know when I'll have the final document, I'll distribute it, and then you have him in the following week, providing his schedule allows, so that you'll have at least have the opportunity to read it and then formulate questions.
If I just may make a comment on the IT, this is the second time within a month that the server has been down. It was the same problem, it wasn't addressed correctly. And I do know that one of the recommendations is to go to an outside server to handle the large infrastructure issues with a help desk. I think it makes total sense, because when those situations arise, there's a backup that is guaranteed beyond our capacity here. And, just to take into consideration the amount of productivity that was lost in 6 days of people not being able to function as they should because they didn't have that ability, is already money lost. So I think that it's a vital thing that we have to take
I
a look
did
at.
talk with Mark about it yesterday, and he has a report. But essentially what happened was the backup server. When the backup server was set up, there was a step missing
It was
somehow
not
in the
configured
process,
correctly.
Right.
and so now that has been corrected.
Mhm.
And so there's the current server, and then there's a backup server in
Right.
case the current one goes down. So hopefully that might prevent that from happening again. But I do think we need to take a really in-depth look at our IT and see if it's really meeting our needs right now, and if we need to build on it, then
Oh, absolutely.
which I'm sure we do. We've talked about the website, but when we get the report, we can do that. But I would see information technology for the county
As
as
a
a
matter of
major
fact,
goal.
I would say that, personally, I would set that as a higher priority than the consultant. However, I think it was clear that the problem with information technology is that it's kind of fractal. There's a little bit here, there's a little bit there. There's different pieces of hardware. There's different access areas, all brought up in Carlson Peter's report.
Right.
And I think at some point you're going to have to bite the bullet and let's say, and organize your information technology so that you do have both the security and the reliability that that we deserve. Because then we get to the point of the online web page that we have is our face to the community, and as we go forward, unless that face is one that's easy to access and easy for people to get the information that we need, that regardless of what we do to say how well organized we are, unless we are able to present a change in the perception of people that we're just another layer of anecdotal government, then it's very important for us to do this.
And right now, I mean, there are a lot of complaints about that website. I mean, people cannot access. I have trouble accessing information, and it is not the face we want, and it's not functioning the way it should. And we're the ones, out of all of the agencies, probably, if you look at what has happened to us in the last month, this does not happen to other agencies, government or private. And many people go to outside service to make sure that those security issues, those redundancy issues, those backup issues are there, so that people do not even know that there's a problem happening because it's being fixed in another site, and there's the redundancy of other lines to be able to take on the tasks that have gone down, and nobody has to miss a beat here. I know that the Cape Light Compact, you're positioned where you have to have grants, you have to have download, upload. These things were just not able to happen, and we got people down in Washington today. They were out of the loop with all the conversations that were going on through email. They weren't able to access anything. They were going down there in the dark. This is not the way we want to function.
Well, I think when we get the report, we'll be able to take a look at it, and it is an assessment of what we have and where we need to be. And then when I say we're going to need to build on it, but it will likely have to be in a phased-in approach because of the amount of money that it will take to build the kind of information infrastructure we need.
On that note,
I have great fear that when we say phased-in approach, that we would continue to support what I would call the fractal nature that we already
I
have.
agree.
No,
We have
I
to make
don't
a
think it
decision
works
on
that
how we're
way.
gonna
I
do
think
it.
when you see what we have and what we need, we don't know if it has to be phased in. Normally it does because you don't have all the money you need in any given year
Exactly.
to do
And
it.
we also
But maybe
don't
we
have
do
any
because we have a
rules.
bonding
We don't have any
capacity.
rules as far as access. Everybody has their own little flash drive.
Well, this is why I think that to have a committee, which was recommended in
Yeah.
that report, among the departments, to identify what their needs are and how to best serve those needs, and to deal with if it's an outside server or however it is, to guide the structure of that IT department and how it's going to interact with each other and with the public.
And I would, and I think I said when we first brought it up, I'm very interested in that, and I think that we ought to appoint a, county commissioner on that. I'd like to be that county commissioner because I'm really convinced that that's the key to everything that we do, and I'd like to see at the end of that we have something that works.
One thing I do think that we have to understand, that I am willing to accept, and we have to take a look at this budget, is that the county itself has internal needs right now that we have neglected. And it's time to address those needs if we are going to be efficient in going forward. The one thing that resonated with me in going to that IBM conference was the gentleman from Mass Technology, and he went to the city of Boston, and he said, if you do nothing else this year, you have to invest in your IT department and put a lot of money in it. And they're saying, how can we do this during an economic crisis? And he said, if you don't, you will lose money because of your inefficiencies, and that is where we are. And I think we have to take a look at this, bite the bullet. It might be a bad year for other causes, but that will help us go forward in a more efficient way, in a more professional way with others. As we say, we don't want to be the bumpkins here of the government agencies.
And I couldn't agree more with you, Sheila. I think you're absolutely right.
So are we all set now on the IT part?
Yep, I just want to go over that, but just so you know, we did move the IT budget discussion till the end of the month, so it's not
Right.
going to occur next week. It will be January 27th. I can go over that when we get to budgets, so
Okay.
that we have the report there.
So Peter will come, you will come up with some sort of an idea of like an estimate of what the costs would be to do.
I'll go back and make sure that that is in there. And then, again, just to capture what you said, review existing IT operations and policies as your goal, with a task to prioritize the IT recommendations in the FY10 analysis.
Right.